What's going on, everyone, and welcome in to the first official 2026 NFL mock draft. It is that time of the year. I'm unbelievably excited to get this started. There is not a better time of the year. We've got the NBA playoffs coming to a final setup. We have the March Madness coming to its closing with the Final Four and the national championship game in a few days. And then, of course, the NFL draft following free agency. This is when I truly thrive as a content creator. There's so many storylines and ideas to follow through on with this amazing draft that we've got here, with the NFL season kind of at a closing point in terms of what's going on from last season, but opening up into next season. That's what I really love. So without further ado, I won't waste anybody's time. Let's hop right into it and talk about our mock draft. So we're going to go pick by pick and explain each one. Let's get started. So, for starters, Fernando Mendoza goes to the Las Vegas Raiders with the number 1 overall pick. This should be of no surprise or shock to anybody. I really don't think that anybody's going to expect anything less here. Fernando Mendoza, the best quarterback in the draft. The Raiders obviously desperately need a quarterback. Now, is he actually the franchise guy? I would like to think so, but I point all the time to a quote by Kevin O'Connell. Organizations fail young quarterbacks before young quarterbacks fail organizations. Will this Raiders team let Fernando Mendoza thrive in their new system? That's yet to be seen. Clint Kubiak's one of the best offensive minds in the league right now. He should have this offense cooking. If they don't, I don't really know who to blame it on, but I'd have to start with the coaching staff. But Fernando Mendoza seems to have all of the intangible stuff. Now, I will say that some of his antics kind of give Russell Wilson vibes. That's just my personal opinion. I think he's a genuine great guy, but in a locker room, especially one that's losing, what does he look like in that environment when you keep talking about the same things over and over with the same type of quote unquote positivity? So I'm curious to see how that plays out. I'm not necessarily sure that Fernando Mendoza is like a for sure guy like I was with Caleb Williams and Josh Allen and a lot of other quarterbacks in the past, but Mendoza goes number 1. He's the quote unquote best player in the draft. I would probably say, as far as my rankings go, he's like the 5th or 6th best player, but quarterback obviously has a lot of value. So let's talk about pick number 2. The New York Jets select Arvell Reese. Now, I've seen a lot of drafts that will take David Bailey here, but Daniel Jeremiah, who in my opinion is one of the best draft experts out there, gave a great take about why the Jets would take Arvell Reese over David Bailey. It's clear that the Jets need edge rushing. Arvell Reese has some experience at linebacker. He's kind of that hybrid player. He's more of a utility guy. The Jets can use him in a bunch of different ways, but I think Arvell Reese has so much raw talent. If it wasn't for Sonny Styles, Arvell Reese would have had the best combine out there for a defensive player outside of maybe Kenyon Sadiq and Eli Stowers offensively. But looking at him and his intangibles, his leadership qualities, he was the play caller for this team, or maybe it was Sonny Styles. But either way, these two go back and forth. The raw talents just jump off the page to me. When I watch the film, I see not a raw athlete, but an athlete that has a much larger ceiling than David Bailey. And the Jets, are they looking for a quarterback in this draft? I do not think so. They are looking to 2027. I'm not going to say that the Jets are tanking because they've made a lot of decisions to improve this team, but I do think using their draft capital for next year, they will be making a move for a quarterback. And so you're not in win now mode. David Bailey is the best win now edge rusher in this draft. Arvell Reese just has the highest ceiling. I think the Jets would go for the potential rather than the higher floor, I guess, with David Bailey. Now let's talk about number 3. The Arizona Cardinals go with Francis Mauigoa. Now, I'm not necessarily a fan of this pick. I think the Cardinals have some other desperate team needs here, but in terms of tackle, it is desperate for Arizona. You've got to be able to protect the quarterback. Once again, like the Jets, I think they're looking for 2027. They don't have a franchise quarterback. They're not drafting one in this draft. I've seen a couple rumors about Ty Simpson going here, but there's just no chance in my mind. The Cardinals could take a defensive player here, but I've got them taking Maui Noa here just simply because he probably is the best tackle in this draft. He's for sure on the right tackle side of the football. He is an aggressive run blocker. Some people have talked about he needs some advancement in the pass protection game. I don't technically disagree with them, but I don't think it's nearly as bad as people are saying. So I like Maui Noa here to number 3, the Arizona Cardinals. Now let's talk about the Tennessee Titans. Now this is the first, I wouldn't say shocker because a lot of people are talking about this, but in terms of the precedent set, this one is surprising. The Tennessee Titans at number 4 go with Jeremiah Love. This, to me, is probably the best selection of the top 10. I think I know Jeremiah Love is my best player in the draft. He is just a freak athlete. We talk about guys like Saquon Barkley. We talk about guys like Bijan Robinson, Christian McCaffrey. Jeremiah Love might not be as good of a running back as they were, but he is definitely a better athlete. That's for sure, in my opinion, when you watch the tape. There's no doubt in my mind that he's going to explode on the scene with the Tennessee Titans. I think this offense is going to transform from year 1 in Cam Ward to year 2. They just need a couple of receiving aspects. Now, could they go a receiver here? Maybe, but I have a feeling if they didn't go with Jeremiah Love, this is a very high-end defensive prospect draft. You've got a head coach who is a defensive-minded guy in Robert Saleh, so if they don't draft Love, do not be shocked if they take a top-end defensive player like a Sonny Styles or maybe a David Bailey. But I think, considering that Tony Pollard is not on this roster, there's not really a RB1. Jeremiah Love, they're just really projecting that this is going to be their draft pick. So now let's talk about number 5, the New York Giants. Now, there's a lot of different ways that the Giants could go with this pick. They don't really have like a team need that I would say is like screaming, although you do lose a guy like Wan'Dale Robinson. And Carnell Tate, now I will say, kind of plays the same role as Malik Neighbors, but you could 100% put Carnell Tate in other spots in this wide receiver core. There are a lot of different things that he does. He is not a specialty guy. He is a utility guy. There's not a lot of tape with the route tree being unbelievably diverse, but I do think Carnell Tate has the talent to do so. Now, John Harbaugh is not a guy who goes high-end wide receivers in his drafts. Now, people could argue, was he even a part of the drafts with the Baltimore Ravens? I would say absolutely, especially considering all of the years that he's been there. This would be a surprising pick to me, but the Giants really do need to help Jackson Dart out. They have a good offensive line that can protect him when healthy. Their defense is stacked with talent. I could understand them adding another top-tier talented guy to throw in some more depth on the defense, but in terms of what this looks like offensively, I think adding Carnell Tate. Now, if Jeremiah Love's here, I wouldn't be surprised for them to take Jeremiah Love either, but Carnell Tate is the best offensive player left on the board that can help Jackson Dart the most. That's going to be their selection, in my opinion. We move on to number 6, the Cleveland Browns, Sonny Styles. Now, we talk about trade backs and like, oh, it's so hard to predict trades. I completely agree, but if I was to suspect a team to trade back in this draft, it would be the Cleveland Browns. Why that is because they desperately need a left tackle right now. They do not have a starting left tackle, but there are not any, in my opinion, quote unquote, top 10 left tackles in this draft. So if I had to guess, they would trade back into the teens and draft Monroe Freeling out of Georgia, who, by the way, is one of my favorite prospects in this draft. I think he has one of the highest ceilings out of all the offensive players, but I digress. If they stick in this spot, they're definitely not taking a left tackle. That would be such a stretch. If they did, I would absolutely flame them for not trading back, but Sonny Styles is the best player on the board. Everybody saw the combine. Nobody really everybody saw the combine, but some people know who he really is as a leader. This is one of the high-end guys of this draft, not only for the tangibles, right? We see the traits on and off the field, but the intangibles, the leadership, the humility. So many people have been praising him throughout this entire offseason. obviously you could see that he's the definition of an athlete. So looking at Sonny Styles and looking at the Cleveland Browns in this specific spot, there's just no way that they let this type of guy pass them up, especially considering that they're also from Ohio. You bring in the quote-unquote hometown kid, but there's a lot of different things to be said about this particular pick and what will be done with it. We'll see how that goes. But number 7, the Washington Commanders. They've got to go with Caleb Downs. This is the best defensive player in the draft, in my opinion. You see him all over the field. Now, some people have size concerns. I do not. If you can play ball, you can play ball for the most part. Now, there are some caveats to that, but Downs is someone that you can use anywhere on the field. The Washington Commanders don't really have a desperate need for safety, but if you have an opportunity to draft a guy like Caleb Downs, you go with this guy right here. Now, is this a player that I think could be an all-pro? ? Yes, absolutely. This is the most, for sure, all-pro guy that I have in this draft. There's no doubt in my mind he is going to excel at a high level. The only reason people say, well, if he's the best player in the draft, why aren't the Jets taking him? Well, there's positional value, and I talked about it a little bit with Fernando Mendoza. Mendoza's not the best player in this draft, but you take him at number 1 because you need a quarterback, and quarterback's the most valuable position. Honestly, Caleb Downs going here at 7 is high for a safety. You do not really see this a lot of the time. Safety is not a high-end value position, but Downs is just such an exceptional player that I would make an exception to the rule here, kind of like I did with Jeremiah Love as well at running back. You don't see running backs in the top 5 very often. I have a tremendous feeling that that will happen, and that it should. Same thing goes with Caleb Downs. Number 8, we've got Mansour Delane. The hometown hero, the transfer into LSU, comes to the New Orleans Saints. Now, the Saints obviously need a lot of cornerback help. They lost a lot of depth in free agency, but most importantly, they lost Alontae Taylor to the Tennessee Titans. Delane, of course, being just an hour away from the Saints facility, they've had combine meetings with him. They went to his pro day, and he did a 30 visit with them. Now, all that being said, this could be, paying homage to the quote-unquote local guy and try to do him a solid, create some buzz and interest for him. That could well be the case, but the Saints have an actual need for corner here. He is the best corner in this draft. Would I be surprised for them to take somebody else here, like maybe Jordan Tyson? They desperately need wide receiver help. No, absolutely not. But Delane is my pick here just because there's a lot of writing on the wall that reflects that the Saints could be moving in this direction. They might go wide receiver later in this draft. We'll talk about some of that in another mock draft where we do an expanded version. This is just for the first round. Number 9, the Kansas City Chiefs. Edge rusher David Bailey. This is the best win now guy. The Kansas City Chiefs have told basically the entire world by signing Kenneth Walker and transforming their secondary on defense. We are in win now mode. We do not have time to pay a bunch of players a ton of money. We want to create supplemental value. We want to build through the draft and win now with Patrick Mahomes coming off the ACL injury. And by all means, David Bailey is the best win now edge rusher in the draft. If the Kansas City Chiefs were at 2 instead of the Jets, they'd be taking David Bailey over Arvell Reese. Why? David Bailey right now is a more polished edge rusher prospect than Arvell Reese. I talked about the potential with Reese. With Bailey, you see him winning almost every single Saturday on a very consistent level. Now, some people want to talk about the size, the strength. I think he's low-key stronger than anybody thinks that he is. It shows on the tape. He's kind of a slim build, but I love the way he plays the game. I ranted and raved about him. You can go watch this last April. I talked about how Texas Tech was a college football playoff contender, and a lot of that credit went to a guy like this from Stanford transferring in, and he showed out on tape last year. If the Kansas City Chiefs get David Bailey, it's unbelievable. Now, could they also take Ruben Bain? Yes, but I will get into why they do not here when I talk about the Cincinnati Bengals. The Cincinnati Bengals are going to probably take Ruben Bain. Ruben Bain has a ferocity like nobody has seen. Now, once again, I won't talk about how I was really high on Jeremiah Love a few years ago because I really wasn't talking about him. Who was I talking about? Ruben Bain Jr. This guy is an absolute tank. He is a unit of a man. This is the huge benefit of Rueben Bain. He can rush from the outside, but you can bump him down inside. He is a versatility defensive lineman. You do not have to have him on the edge. You could bump him down to tackle, and he will succeed at a high level, even at his current size. He doesn't have to add size. He doesn't have to minimize. He's explosive. The one knock on him, and the reason that he's this far down on my list, is I think Will Campbell is getting in everybody's heads. The short arm length and whatnot. Rueben Bain, I'm not buying it. This guy is a absolute ball player. The way that he plays the game shows the ferocity that a lot of players really do not have. I love Rueben Bain in this spot. If I were another team, maybe the Tennessee Titans, I would consider taking Rueben Bain at 4, but I completely understand the narrative going around about short arm length and whatnot. So Rueben Bain falls down to number 10, but this is an absolute steal for the Bengals. Number 11, the Miami Dolphins. In my opinion, there's no way that they cannot take a wide receiver here. You trade away Jalen Waddle. Who is Malik Willis throwing the ball to next year? It's got to be Mekhi Lemon. He's the, in my opinion, next best receiver in this draft. There's debate about him versus Jordan Tyson. I think for the scheme that the Dolphins want to run, a more slot receiver is probably the best one to go with to start. Tyson could be, or a Tyson-like player could be a supplemental player, later on. Right now they have Tutu Atwell as well. He's more of a deep route guy. Mekhi Lemon is a short route, medium route specialist. He is an aggressive catcher at the point of attack. You can put him over the field. I know he's a little small for size, but he honestly, that didn't matter to him whatsoever. As a matter of fact, honestly, the contact probably made him a better player. Like, it motivated him and drove him to be a better football player. So Mekhi Lemon is really undervalued in this draft. I think the Dolphins have no choice but to go with Lemon here. You got to get a receiver to help your new quarterback that you're paying, I think, $30 million, $20 million, something along those lines. So that being said, Mekhi Lemon at number 11. Number 12, the Dallas Cowboys. Now, this one is a little bit of a stretch. I think you could probably find Jermod McCoy, Tennessee corner, down in the late teens, early 20s, where the Cowboys have a pick. This one was a really hard pick because I think, talking about the Cleveland Browns trading down, I don't think it's impossible to see the Cowboys trade up in this draft to grab a guy like Mansour Delane or something along those lines. They need linebacker help. They need edge rusher help. They need corner help. And in this point in the draft at number 12, there's not a lot of edge rushing talent, top tier edge rushing talent left. And there's also not a ton of linebacker depth in this draft. Now, you could go with a guy like CJ Allen, but once again, I think you could find that kind of value in the late teens, early 20s where they already have a pick. So Jermod McCoy, he hasn't played in the last year and a half, I believe, coming off of that ACL tear. But this was one of the most one of the most talented guys in college football. You saw the traits. You saw him lock up Ryan Williams in that game in Knoxville, Tennessee a couple years ago. I think he's probably the best corner consensus-wise. I haven't done a ton of research on Jermod McCoy. I've seen the high-end stuff. Haven't seen the low-end stuff really, but maybe that's a sign that he's just not a low-end he's not a low-lights prospect. So he could be one of the best corners in this draft. I like Mansour Delane. We'll see what happens with Jermod McCoy here at 12. I'm not terribly confident about this pick. Number 13, the Los Angeles Rams need a right tackle. Now, the 5th round pick, I believe his name is McClellan or something along those lines, stepped in for right tackle Haverstein last year, and he actually retired. So the Rams probably need a right tackle. Would I be shocked to have them select Jordan Tyson here? No, absolutely not. This is win now mode for the Rams. Spencer Fano is as polished of a right tackle prospect as you could probably get. Unbelievably aggressive at the point of attack. He really has a high motor. He will finish plays to the whistle. There could be some, nuance to his game in terms of pass protection, but I think he is a really decent prospect. I did a whole draft profile on him if you want to go check that out. I don't think he's a top 10 guy, but finding him here at 13 with a desperate need, or not desperate need, but a need at right tackle, perfectly slots in here for the Los Angeles Rams. 14, The Baltimore Ravens, yes, they fired John Harbaugh. They still have the same front office. I don't think many things change here. They don't get Lamar Jackson the actual help that he needs. And now I understand the run game needs to improve. So they go with Vega Iwane. I might be mispronouncing that. I apologize to you, sir. But this is the best interior offensive lineman in the draft. No questions about it. The Ravens could absolutely improve their run game. You know, you lose a guy like Tyler Linderbaum at center. You know, you might have to make some rotational plays around the depth on the offensive line. Vega's the perfect guy to kind of plug and play in that system. He's a win-now prospect. The Ravens obviously in win-now mode. Would I like to see them take Jordan Tyson or Mekhi Lemon if he's here? Absolutely. Will that happen? Probably not. Let's talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, this, in my opinion, is one of the best picks in this draft. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have been known for their linebackers over the past decade or so. You've got a true leader in Levante David. Devin White, of course, had some great years with the Buccaneers, but CJ Allen is that next guy. You know, Nick Saban and Kirby Smart, what I've always talked about is, man, did they know how to develop middle linebackers? CJ Allen is the next guy in that line. Rolando McClain, Dante Hightower, Roquan Smith, CJ Mosley. I mean, I could go on and on about the signal caller linebacker for Saban and Kirby Smart. This is an excellent play here at 15. CJ Allen is going to fit perfectly into this new and upcoming Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense. The New York Jets finally go and get a guy to pair with Garrett Wilson. Is it time to get Geno Smith some help? Absolutely. Now, some people have suspected that the Jets will take Ty Simpson here. I just don't believe it. Everything points to them drafting a quarterback in 2027. That's the whole reason why they made all of these moves and specifically asked for picks in 2027, not 2026. This was not the quarterback class to do it. Now, if Dante Moore was in this class, that's another story. But Ty Simpson, in my opinion, not a first-round quarterback as of right now. I haven't really looked too deeply into the tape. I'm going to have to, but I just seriously doubt that the Jets would do all that they've done just to take Ty Simpson here in this spot. Jordan Tyson at 16. 17, the Detroit Lions. This is an unbelievable pick for the Detroit Lions. They've had some issues with Taylor Decker. I think they cut him or released him or whatever. There have been some rumors about him like rejoining the team under a new contract. I don't know if that's going to happen. If they don't, Monroe Freeling is that guy. This is one of the prospects that I am the absolute highest on. And if the Browns took him at 6, I said I would clown them, which I would because, you know, you can get him down here in the teens. But, man, would he be a great fit? High motor, 6'7", over 300 pounds, pure athlete, so physical. The traits are off the chart. This was a guy that if you go and really want to get into the Pleasant lore here, I did an episode with Saturdays in the SEC months ago where we previewed Georgia and we talked about their offensive line, and I ranted and raved about Monroe Freeling. I'm still ranting and raving about him. This is, in my opinion, the highest ceiling offensive tackle, maybe even the highest ceiling offensive player in this draft. Not a lot of people see it like I do, but Monroe Freeling, that's a guy I will take my hat off and tip it for him. Let's talk about 18, the Minnesota Vikings. Harrison Smith is coming to an end. The era of Harrison Smith at safety is finally coming to an end. Dylan Thieneman. Hey, look, I'm not going to get into the whole like white DB thing, but hey, Harrison Smith, Dylan Thieneman, go hand in hand here. Am I right? Now, let's talk about Thieneman as an actual prospect. His film at Purdue was a lot better than his film at Oregon, but in my opinion, the system in Oregon doesn't complement his game. Somebody that's going to get a lot of use out of him is Brian Flores, an absolute defensive genius. This guy is unbelievably versatile. He could stop in the run. He's absolutely capable of stopping the deep route. He can play man-to-man coverage. He's really kind of a zone specialist, as are most white DBs. Not trying to be, too stereotypical, but I mean, let's just call it what it is. Am I right? But Thieneman, he is an unbelievable safety prospect. Definitely the second best safety in this class. Might even be the second best defensive back. But like I said earlier with Caleb Downs, safety is not a high-end value position. It's totally understandable why he would fall all the way here. I honestly would not be shocked to see him fall out of the first round completely. But the Vikings here need a safety. this is definitely the plug and play guy. 19, Carolina Panthers. Man, did they get a treat here. Kenyon Sadiq had one of the best combines out there. You know, the athletic traits are off the charts. The Panthers are in desperate need for a true tight end option for Bryce Young, a dump down guy. He is that guy. I'm talking Kyle Pitts level athleticism. Maybe not as a high volume guy as Kyle Pitts is or has been, but Kenyon Sadiq can absolutely come in and plug and play in this Carolina Panthers offense. Dave Canales, you know, all he's done since he got there with Bryce Young is try to put players around him to succeed right now. And hey, they won the division last year. Could that, you know, end up changing for the better or the worse next season with a division winning schedule? Mayhaps not. But Kenyon Sadiq is the right way to go. Number 20, the Dallas Cowboys. Emmanuel McNeill-Warren. You know, as much as I'd like to say, oh, well, you know, you don't really draft G5 guys in the first round. We have a lot of players that get drafted in the first round from the G5. Specifically, Quinyon Mitchell from the Philadelphia Eagles. Maybe the Cowboys take a play out of their book, go with his, I don't know if they were actually teammates or not, but McNeill-Warren is potentially the second best safety in this class. I don't think so, just because of his size. You know, he's got, as you can see in this picture, he's got a very slender build, but he has a very high IQ, loves to, you know, fly to the football. You know, there's a lot of plays that you watch on the tape where he is making football savvy plays, which out of, you know, G5 guys, you don't see that a ton. What you see with G5 guys like a Khalil Mack, for example, from Buffalo, you see raw athlete that's got a lot of high-end potential. But McNeill-Warren is a very polished, you know, I want to even say cerebral quarterback, or safety, excuse me, not quarterback. But I love McNeill-Warren here to this spot. The Cowboys get a lot of help in the secondary. Would they take an edge rusher here like Akeem Mesidor? Maybe. But Akeem Mesidor, I just can't get past the age thing, but that's just me. Let's move on to number 21. Denzel Boston of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, I'm sniping him here. Will the Pittsburgh Steelers actually shift gears here? They've already traded for Michael Pittman. They've got DK Metcalf. Aaron Rodgers always talks about how he, according to reports, talks about how he wants more receiver help. Denzel Boston met with them at the Combine. They went to his pro day. And he went on a 30 visit. Maybe he's going on a 30 visit. But Boston is a heavily scouted guy for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think he's the fourth, quote unquote, fourth best wide receiver here. Carnell Tate, Jordan Tyson, and Mekhi Lemon. Yeah, fourth best wide receiver in this class. Some might argue Omar Cooper. I like, or maybe Casey Concepcion, but I like Denzel Boston here. You know, a 50-50, split. So a lot of people talk about you have 30 visits and how 50% of first-round picks go on a 30 visit to the team that drafted them. This is one of those that I'll hang my hat on and say, this is where Denzel Boston will fall. And if he doesn't fall here, he'll go to number 22, the Los Angeles Chargers. And if Denzel Boston's not here, Casey Concepcion will be there. And I think that Jim Harbaugh is going to find yet another one of his guys here. Casey Concepcion is, once again, similarly to Denzel Boston, met with the Chargers at I think they attended his pro day, met at the Combine, They met at the Combine, and last but not least, he went on a 30 visit with the Chargers. The Chargers need receiver. Keenan Allen is getting very, very old. Maybe he's not even on the roster anymore. Ladd McConkey had a rough season last year off of his, explosive rookie season. They need a guy to pair with him, and you've got Johnston from TCU. He's been up and down throughout his career. This is a gadget guy, a short route, maybe even a deep route specialist, but really a guy that you want to give a screen to and let him make a play, kind of like a Jalen Waddle, really. So I like KC here to the Los Angeles Chargers. I think the Chargers would either go this or maybe some depth at offensive line like Pregnon from Oregon. But let's move on to number 23, Blake Miller. The Eagles always draft depth here in the first round. Yes, those guys end up being starters, but man, do they know how to pick and play. Blake Miller, right tackle, I believe. Yes, right tackle. What am I even saying? Is going to be the replacement to Lane Johnson. In terms of tackle experience, he has by far the most out of any first round caliber player. Could they select Caden Proctor here? Yes, but they don't really need left tackle. They need right tackle. Lane Johnson's going to play for year 16, but year 17, obviously up in question. Injuries have been a storyline here for the Eagles offensive line as of recent, and Blake Miller is absolutely a plug-and-play guy. He's seen it all. He's done it all. This is an easy pick here for the Eagles. Could they go defense? Absolutely, but I think there's a lot that Howie Roseman's going to be cooking up later on in this draft. 24. Now, this is where the Cleveland Browns select a tackle if they don't trade back, and the best left tackle available right now is Caden Proctor. Arguably, he is the best tackle, but a lot of people have fallen on him, and I completely understand the notion. Alabama could not run the football last year. Honestly, couldn't even run it behind Caden Proctor, which was really hard to understand. Now, pass protection, he is really good. Probably the best floor pass protector in this draft, but there's just a lot of things that went weird with this Alabama offense last year. Ty Simpson and his illness, but Alabama throughout the entire season, this is no subjective fact. This is objective. Could not run the football. Caden Proctor here, left tackles, the Browns need it. That's who they select here at 24. 25, the Chicago Bears. This is another 30-visit guy. He has gone on a 30 visit to the Bears. The Bears need defensive line help. He's the best defensive lineman in this draft. Not necessarily in my opinion, but consensus-wise, I would not be surprised to see this happen. They also met with him at the Combine. They went to his pro day. There's a lot of other things that the Bears have established a true relationship with Caden McDonald. If he's available here at 25, they will absolutely take him. 26, the Buffalo Bills. I don't think they're done helping out Josh Allen. Sean McDermott has been there for years. Brandon Beane has been, drafting players at the direction of Sean McDermott potentially for the last few years. They've gone a heavy defense in the draft. I think Joe Brady goes out to get yet another guy for Josh Allen. That would mean that DJ Moore, Omar Cooper, and Khalil Shakir will be the wide receiver core, not to mention Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox as well. That is a stacked offense for Josh Allen. Truly, there will be no excuse for him next year. So Omar Cooper here at 26, maybe the best second-round receiver here, taken a little bit early, but I like Omar Cooper here at 26 with the Buffalo Bills. 27, the San Francisco 49ers. Akeem Mesidor, I've knocked him a lot for the age thing, but man, like Ruben Bain, that Miami defensive line as a whole, but especially with Akeem Mesidor as a leader, just the ferocity, man. I cannot get enough of it. Akeem Mesidor is a win-now edge rusher. The San Francisco 49ers are competing for a Super Bowl. Would they take a wide receiver here? Yes, if they're available. But through my mock draft, they're not available. So you got to go with somebody else here. They need some edge rusher help. Nick Bosa might not be enough for this team. I believe Joey Bosa maybe is in contract talks with the 49ers, but adding Mesidor to that game as well is it's not a bad thing to add depth. The Eagles have done it for years. So the 49ers go with Mesidor. I think he's a first-round edge rusher. Would I take him in the second round, or would I put him in the second round if I was like the GM of every one of these teams? Yes. But I would not be surprised here to see the 49ers take edge rusher Akeem Mesidor. Number 28, the Houston Texans. We see these guys take defensive players all the time in the first round. Caleb Banks is going to be the best player available for the Texans. They need some defensive line help. Tim Settle leaves to the Washington Commanders in free agency. Caleb Banks is a win now, massive guy, not only with a high floor, but in my opinion, a high ceiling as well. He's 6'6", I believe, 300 plus pounds, explosive. We didn't get to see a lot of him last year with his injury. Then the same thing happened at the Combine. But I believe if you give him an extended period of time, all the way up until June to heal up, he will be ready to go for next season. And the Texans defense just continues to get better. 29, the Kansas City Chiefs. They lost Jalen Watson and they lost Trent McDuffie in their secondary. They're going to have to replace that secondary. And I think they start with Avion Terrell, who is one of the best man-to-man coverage guys in this draft, next to Mansour Delane. I would love to see the Chiefs I think the Chiefs really got away with highway robbery here at 9 and 29, going with David Bailey and then Avion Terrell. Great draft for the Kansas City Chiefs. They are really back into the conversation of Super Bowl contender with these two first-round picks. Number 30, Colton Hood. Another corner gets taken. I think this is going to be a DB happy first round, if you couldn't tell. But the Dolphins have got to have some help in the secondary. They've moved off a ton of secondary guys like Minkah Fitzpatrick. I think he's with the Jets now. Jalen Ramsey obviously gets traded to the Steelers. There's just so many holes in this Dolphins defense. Jeff Hafley is a defensive-minded guy. You know, the Packers so the new Dolphins regime has been a part of the Packers regime. Honestly, now that I say this, would I be surprised if they don't take a receiver in the first round? Absolutely not. Why? Because the Packers hardly ever take a first-round wide receiver. So Colton Hood here, no surprise to me that they go defense. Could they also take an offensive lineman? 100%. But Colton Hood's my guy here because I think the Dolphins have got to have some help in the secondary. 31. Now, I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name, and I'm so sorry. Next time I do a mock draft, I will absolutely have his name memorized. But the New England Patriots, you've seen the clips with Mike Vrabel. He is all over this guy. They definitely need right tackle depth. He is a developmental prospect. Max, I'm so sorry. But the raw talent, you can absolutely see it. He has flashes of true greatness on the field. He is right up there next to Monroe Freeling as one of the highest ceilings in this draft. I don't think he started playing football until junior college, I believe. So, I mean, this is a guy who has hardly played football at all. I am obsessed with this guy here for the New England Patriots. You've seen him everywhere in terms of the 30 visits, the combine visits, the pro day visits. The New England Patriots are really projecting that they're going to draft this guy at 31. 32, Keldrick Falk. For the Seattle Seahawks, by the way, what a steal. I just don't see how this guy gets out of the first round. He did not have a great combine. There's a lot of questions about his motor and his effort, but the athletic traits are off the charts. I mean, this guy is he's like a basketball player with his athleticism. He is a hooper. He is a gamer. This is a guy who knows how to play the system. He knows how to balance finesse with physique and power. Keldrick Falk is one of the best edge rushers, kind of talking like Monroe Freeling and Max, the tackle from Arizona State. Keldrick Falk is one of the high-end ceiling guys. I would put him up there next to Arvell Reese in terms of potential. If the Seattle Seahawks get one of these guys at 32 and throw him in the depth and really work with Mike McDonald and the defensive staff on his engine and his motor and his effort, man, oh man, is this guy going to take off and be the next great Seattle Seahawks edge rusher. But ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for my first round mock draft. I am going to do multiple mock drafts. Please be tuned for those because they are so fun to do. I think this is great content. Let me know what you think of that in the comments. Please be sure to like and subscribe. Thank you guys all so much for watching, and we will see you next time.